الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah, continue with the book of Akhsar Al-Mokhtasarat in the subject of transactions, and we stopped by the chapter or fasl in بيع الأصول والثمار, the selling of al-usul, the things that have foundations or the non-movable things, and al-thimar, plants and trees and produce and things like this. So, inshallah ta'ala, hopefully we can benefit, inshallah. And I think, inshallah, I would need your help with some of the translations of things. So, hopefully you guys are with me, inshallah, in this. As we said in the books of fiqh, the ulama, they mention examples or things that were present at their times. And they do it in such a great way, so that even if things that we do not understand, we can relate to it. And it gives us the principles that they follow. So that even if it's not something that a person is using, he can relate to it. And this is how the matters of fiqh is to understood, with the foundations of it and the principles of it. And also, things that you might not be exposed to, but the deen is universal. So if it's something that talks about trees or plants or farming and things like this, then this is needed. And a person studying matters of ilm, he should have this comprehensiveness of things, and he will need it. And people would have questions, or he need to make sure that he knows what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed in these matters. So we'll start again, even though we read the first part of it, as he says, fasl. If you follow, inshallah ta'ala, the Arabic text, and since we're going word by word to the best of our ability, inshallah, he says, وَإِذَا بَاعَ دَارًا شَمِلَ الْبَيْعُ. If he sells a dar, if he sells a house or a place, building, شَمِلَ الْبَيْعُ. Al-bay' will include, this is the meanings of shamila, whether it's with kasra or fatha, even though there might be slight differences. So it includes shamila al-bay'. What would the bay' would be included as part of the transaction without having to intentionally or specifically mention it in the aqd, in the contract. Ardaha, the land of it, and wabina'aha, and the building, and the ha alif is the damir referring back to the dar. So the dar is feminine in the Arabic language. Everything has either to be masculine or feminine. So ardaha, that means ard al-dar. The ard, the earth of the dar, the earth of the building, belongs to the mushtari, to the buyer, unless it's otherwise specified, because a person can purchase a building without the land. So it depends on what the contract is. But if nothing is mentioned, that means the earth that the building is on top of is included. وَبِنَاءَهَا, and the building of it, of course, which is an obvious thing. وَسَقْفَهَا, we talked about that. Saqf is the ceiling. وَبَابًا مَنْصُوبًا, and a door that is mansub, that means it's erected, it's placed in its place, not standing on the side. وَسُلَّمًا, and a ladder or stairs. وَرَفًّا مَسْمُورَيْن, raf is a shelf that is nailed in the wall. وَخَابِيَةٍ مَدْفُونَةٍ, خَابِيَة from something that is hidden, and madfuna, that means it's buried. Whether they would have something under the ground to collect the water, for example, or storage or anything like this. All of that is part of the house. As we said, and the ulama, they mention this not just for the sake of mentioning it. In some places, at sometimes, they might not include these things. A person would want to take his ceilings with him, because the ceiling is a movable one. It's not something that is fixed into the building. The same thing with the doors, a special door. He wants to take the door with him. So unless he specified, then everything is included. And what brings these things together is if it's, as the ulama, they call it something muttasil, something attached to the building, and there's a benefit for it to be there. So it's not something detached from it, it's connected to it. And there's a benefit, of course, for it to be there, and that's the norm, and that's the urf. things like that would be referred back to the urf, to the norm of the people. So if the norm of the people when they sell the house, something is not included in it unless it's specified, then it's not included. So all of these things, and it's not mentioned here as these are the only things to be included. This is as an example of what is attached to the building. لا قفلا, not قفل. القفل is the lock. أم على قلوب أقفالها, as the Quran mentions al-aqfal is the locks. So لا قفلا, the lock is detached, is not part of the building. ومفتاحا, a key. دلوا, which is the bucket. بكر أو بكرة, which is basically the when something is circle, but it's mainly what they call when you get the water from the well, so that ring that brings the rope on top of it, so the pulley, yes, right. So it's for the well of the water. So this is something detached. ونحوها, and the like of that. So things that are detached from the house. So this is not part of it unless it's specified. So if, for example, nowadays the furniture, if someone purchases a house and the furniture is not written as part of the contract, it is not included unless it will be specified that the furniture is included. So the things that are not attached, then it has to be mentioned specifically in the contract. Otherwise, it doesn't come by default. And we can go on and on with this. And it's different from one thing to the other, whether it's a factory versus a house versus this and that. So, but the thing that brings this all together, things that are attached, and it's from the benefit of whatever this asl and this usul, that means it's not a movable thing. It's not a car, it's a house. So if it's attached to it, then there's benefit, attached and benefit, versus something that is not attached. So this is الدار أو أرضا. The second thing here from الأصول الأرض. Someone sells a land. شمل, what is included in the أرض? غرسها وبناءها. These two things. غرسها وبناءها. الغرس is anything that is in general planted. And as it will come inshallah ta'ala with differences between al-ghars wa zar'. If you have the word al-ghars is what's poked into the earth, planted, dug into the earth for it to be planted. But if it's mentioned specifically with az-zar' also is the plant or something that grows from the earth. But al-ghars becomes more of anything that has a stem and fruits, and the asl of it, the foundation of it, the roots of it is not harvest every time, versus the things that you cut it off completely and then it grows again. So for example, if someone is growing mint, for example, right, then all of it has to be harvested and then new crops will come out, versus palm trees, apple trees, things like this. So apple trees, for example, you just take the fruits and the tree stays the same. So there's rulings as it will come when it comes to buy and sell the trees versus az-zara'. So but here in general, gharsaha. So a person, if he's selling a land, that includes what's in the land of anything that is planted there, but with some details as it will come. So gharsaha wa bina'ah, and whatever is built there, unless it's specified. So that is included as part of the land. He says la zar'an. So now here he says except az-zara'. So that means al-ghars here is the trees or the things that has fruits, not just trees, anything that is not harvested by cutting it off. So if it's a zara' and a person purchased the land and the zara' is there, the zara' that is present, the plants that are present, and will be details there inshallah as it will come. If it's already ready to be harvested, if it's going to be harvested, then it's for the seller. He has only one time harvesting of it, unless it's specified, right? So because this is something that grew in his presence when it was in his ownership, different than the trees, right? So illa la zar'a. So the zara', the plants other than trees, are not included by default into the land. The seller has the right to harvested before he handed over to the buyer. As we will see, that will still continue. وَبَذْرَهُ, al-badr is the seeds. So the seeds that are put in the ground, إِلَّا بِشَرْط, except with a condition. So all of that is except with the condition. If the condition is that he doesn't take any of this. So that's fine. So according to what they would agree upon. ويصح مع جهل ذلك. ويصح, that means it's valid. مع جهل ذلك, with not knowing, being ignorant of that. What is not knowing? Meaning not knowing what's the better, what's the seeds underneath. If it's 1 or million or this part or that part, you're not going to dig for every, this is belong to me, this is, doesn't belong. So it doesn't have to be known and counted and things like this. This is what, it's valid if it's not known. So it's something that can be overlooked. So this is the ard. This is the land. Again, goes to the same principle, which is important for us to know these principles. And that is, things that are attached to it, and it's part of that, and it's from the benefit of it, then it's to be included. If it's not, then if they don't specify, then it doesn't belong to it. As mentioned here, except the zara' and al-badr, the seeds. So al-ghars wal-bina, things that are, the trees is like the usul, because you don't move it. So it's always included in the land that a person sells. So this is the second thing that is in this chapter when it comes to the usul, or the things that is not movable. The third one, he says, وَمَا يُجَزُّ أَوْ يُلْقَطُ مِرَارًا. Now we have to pay attention to the word we use. وَمَا يُجَزُّ. And what's yujaz? Al-jaz is to be cut. Again, the plants that now you have machineries, right? They cut it all. Corn, for example, right? They remove it all. Do they remove it, or they just take? I don't want to mention examples because that's not my expertise. By something where it's completely removed and then it grows again. So this is ma yujaz. Anything that is harvested like this by being cut. Clear? This is al-jaz. Al-jaz means al-qat', when you cut something. أو يلقط. أو يلقط. Al-laqt is when you pick. So something that is harvested by picking. As he would mention some of the examples here. No, later. For example, cucumbers, tomatoes, something that is being picked. So وَمَا يُجَزُّ أَوْ يُلْقَطُ مِرَارًا. Miraran, that means continuously. You pick it and then it goes. For example, a teen, figs. When you pick it from the trees, apples. You pick it from the trees, but and then it grows again. وَمَا يُجَزُّ أَوْ يُلْقَطُ مِرَارًا. Miraran, that means continuously. It keeps on happening. فَأُصُولُهُ, then it's usul. So now what is the deal with plants that are being either cut or being harvested by picking? Al-usul of it. Now this is when you're selling the land or you're selling the plant even. فَأُصُولُهُ لِمُشْتَرٍ. Al-usul is what? The roots. What stays. Not picked. لِمُشْتَرٍ, for the buyer, for the purchaser. Because it stays in the land, and he's now the seller, he sold the land. So what stays in the land belongs to the mushtari, belongs to the purchaser. He says, وَجَزَّةٌ. We want to make sure that we're reading it right? If you need to make the haraka for it, to make sure that you pronounce it right. وَجَزَّةٌ وَلَقْطَةٌ ظَاهِرَتَانِ لِبَائِعٍ مَا لَمْ يَشْرِطْهُ مُشْتَرٍ, أو مَا لَمْ يَشْتَرِطْهُ, depends on which book that you're reading from. مُشْتَرٍ, meaning وَجَزَّ. We said that يُجَزُّ is what being cut, right? وَجَزَّ, that means one jazza. Right? They call it, this is the marra, this is the one time. Jazza, that means one cut. One harvesting by cutting. Jazza, that means, doesn't have to say one jazza. Jazza means one jazza. Like this, when you say jazza. Like on the same way they say marra, one time. وَلَقْطَ. He said وَيُلْقَط, right? Something that is being picked. Here, laqta. Something that is picked one time. So one jazza, one cut, one laqta, one picked, meaning the entire land, of course, not one plant. That means one time harvesting, whether it's by cutting or by picking. ظاهرتان, very clear, not underneath the ground, not roots, but something that is apparent, something very clear. لبائع, for who? For the بائع, for the seller. So one jazza, one cut, harvesting for whatever is cut, whatever is picked, for the whatever is clear, not hidden, is for the بائع, for the seller. So he sells the land and he has some plants, some fruits that are clear in the land. He has the right. He sells the land unless it's specified, right? No not specified in the contract. That means by default it belongs to the seller. Just one harvesting before he hand over the land. Even he can hand it over, but then later on, after a few days, whatever he will harvest, whatever is planted. So this is liba'i'. So al-usul, the foundation of it, the roots of it is for the purchaser, and al-jazza wal-laqta is for the bai'. Is it clear? ما لم يشرطه مشتري. ما لم يشرطه, as long as the mushtari, the purchaser, does not make it as a condition. ما لم يشرطه from الشرط. And this is in the present tense. Mushtarin, the purchaser. So if the purchaser says, no, there is plant is very clear in the land, no, I want it. I will purchase the land with whatever on it without you harvesting anything from it. That's fine if they agree. He will increase the price, no problem. So this is up to him if it's not mentioned as a condition. So again, with the words also, we learn even the tarakib and the sentences. You see the word is mentioned. Yujazzu, this is in the passive tense. Yajizzu means he's cutting it. Jazza, he cut it in the past. Yujazzu, that means it's been cut. Aw yulqat. Yulqat. Al-luqata, there's a chapter for al-luqata. Al-luqata is when someone finds something on the ground that does not belong to him, money or something. It's called luqata because you pick it from the ground, which is the lost and found type of thing. So here, وَجَزَّةٌ, one jazza, one laqta, ظاهرتان, apparent, لبائع. الأصول المشتري أنا الجزة أنا اللقطة لبائع ما لم يشرطه مشتري, as long as the mushtari does not make it as a condition. Please. Then the next one, وَمَنْ بَاعَ نَخْلًا. Now, not the land, we're going into the plant itself. Whatever is planted, trees, plants, whatever. Now different types. That means a person can sell plants and not the land. Right? So, مَنْ بَاعَ نَخْلًا. If someone sold palm trees, he's selling the palm trees and not the land. It's like, if you want to make it easy to understand, like you're purchasing an apartment, not the land. So you don't have a share in the land, but you're purchasing the apartment. So if the building collapses after whatever 100 years, for example, you don't have a share in the land. You purchase the apartment only. So here, من باع نخلا, someone purchased nakhl, palm trees. The palm tree, when he purchased it, has many different conditions, different stages of what the palm tree is in while he purchased it. Here, let's follow the words. تشقق طلعه. And this is where we need help, inshallah. If I say something wrong with the translation, inshallah, I can go back and get the right words for it, inshallah. الطلع, طلعه. You see the word طلعه? The ha here refers to the palm tree. الطلع is the pollen. Right? So, the nakhl, how the palm trees are? There's male and females in the palm trees. The palm trees are males and some palm trees are females. So either that it pollinated by itself, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the wind. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send the wind and it pollinate to one another. And people, when they grow palm trees, the male is worth some money different than the female because people need both, right? Or people would, and this is what most of them, they would do the pollination themselves. So at a certain time, once it start open, this is the shaqqa. The shaqqa, that means it's split open. So at-tal' or the pollen opened, split open. And that means they would go to the male palm tree and they would take it from it. You know, it's like as if the flower of it, which is very white, sticks like this with so much small pollens like this. And then they put it in the female trees, right? And then they wait till it grows, the dates. So if someone sold nakhl, تشقق طلعه. Its طلع, its pollen has been split open. That means it's ready now. Now you have the new fruits that is coming. He sold it while now this fruit belongs to who? Belongs to the seller or the purchaser, even though it's not ripe yet. It's just start to split and open. فالثمر, then الثمر, the produce, which is here the dates, له, to him, to who? To the seller. So فالثمر, الثمر, as we what is الثمر in English? The produce. Am I saying it right? The produce, right? So الثمر له, that means to him, that means to who? To the seller. مبقى إلى جداد. مبقى, that means from الباقي, that means it stays. It's to stay. إلى جداد, whether it's جداد or جداد, this is all correct. That means till it's harvested or till it's cut off. So, but the word is specific for the palm tree. That's why when you say you cut something, you would use different terminologies with different trees, different ways. Correct? So, فَالثَّمَرُ لَهُ, so the produce or the dates here in this case, for the seller, مُبَقَّى, no, he sold it now, and the fruits is not there, the produce is not there yet. So no one would say, oh, just take it and leave. No, it has to stay in the trees. And now the land or the palm trees belong to the purchaser, but he has to, once it ripes and it's ready to be harvested, it will be given to the seller. Why? Because at the time when he sold it, الطلع, which is the pollen, was split open. So it belongs to the seller, unless it's specified. All of that is unless they agree to something else. فَالثَّمَرُ لَهُ, the thamar, the produce is for the seller. مُبَقَّى, you get the word مُبَقَّى from baqa, that means it stays. مُبَقَّى, it will stay. إِلَى جَدَاد, till it's cut off or harvested or collected. ما لم يشرطه مشتري, and the same clause at the end, ما لم يشرطه مشتري, which means what? As long as the mushtari now does not specify, does not make it as a condition that he wants it for himself. ما لم يشرطه مشتري. مشتري is the purchaser. Clear? So this is with the nakhl. Of course, if it's here تشقق طلعه, that means if it's after that, it's very obvious, yes, to the seller. So if it's already, the dates are right there in the, you can see it. So who the dates on the palm trees belong to when the seller of the palm tree sells it, belong to the seller, right? Because it's there. Because he says from the very moment that it splits open. Before that, because there's nothing, so it will belong to the purchaser. Clear? He says, وَكَذَا, what's وَكَذَا means? And the same thing. You guys follow the words? وَكَذَا, the same thing, the same حكم. وَكَذَا حُكْمُ شَجَرٍ, the حكم of shajar. Shajar here is what? Trees. فيه, in the trees, ثمر بادٍ, now selling trees. The previous one was selling palm trees. Here, وَكَذَا حُكْمُ شَجَرٍ, someone sells trees and not the land. حُكْمُ شَجَرٍ فيه, in it, in the shajar, in the trees, ثمر بادٍ. Thamar is produce. Badin min al-budu, that means it's clear, it's apparent. And even more, because this is a very famous matter in the buying and selling of al-thimar, which will come. Budu al-salah. Prophet ﷺ forbade selling the produce before قبل بدو صلاحه, before it becomes apparently ready to be harvested. And we'll talk about what constitutes this. So if there's a tree or trees, a person selling trees, that the produce of it is clear. You see it. You see the dates. You see the apples, right? So this is one. أو ظهر, has the same ruling. So what's the ruling here? If the fruits is, you can see the fruits and it's apparent. Who does this fruits belong to? Or the produce belongs to the seller. Because already came out. You can see it. Unless it's specified. And the same thing, أو, now the same principle applies. But he's given different types of plants and things like this to show that the matter is the same for all of them. أو ظهر من نوره. أو ظهر means appeared or becomes apparent. Min, from نوره. And نور, if you don't, I'm not sure if you have it with in the footnote there, but النور is basically the flowers. أو ظهر من نوره, like the nur, but here refers to the flower. Some produce comes from a flower. It starts with a flower first, and then the produce comes. Like what? Kamishmish. Anybody knows the mishmish? Kaf is like mishmish, easy. What's mishmish? Huh? What did you say? Give you make it closer. No, not reason. It's a yellow orange color. Apricot, right? Mishmish is the apricot, right? So that means it comes out as a flower first, and then from the flower, the mishmish comes. So anything like this. So the flower comes first. So if the flower comes, the produce is not there yet, but the flower comes. So once the flower comes out, and someone purchased the trees, and then the fruit comes later, so the fruit belongs to who? To the seller, because the flower already had came out. So this is part of his work. This is happened in his time of his ownership. أو ظهر من نوره كمشمش. كمشمش like the mishmish. أو خرج من أكمامه, or came out from its أكمام. خرج, here ظهر appeared, من نوره, from its flower, كمشمش. أو خرج came out from أكمامه. أكمامه, the ha belongs to the أكمام of the shajar, or the whatever is being planted. But here أكمام is the plural of kum, and al-kum is like for the clothing is the sleeves. So what is I think maybe they call it sleeves. So it's basically the container or the thing in the plants or the trees that brings out the produce from. So it can be a flower or like a container, and then the produce comes from it. He says كوردٍ وقطن. Like a word is the flowers. So the flower comes, maybe it's called the bud or something. Huh? Yes, and then it comes out. Or al-qutn is the cotton. So the cotton comes from what? This is al-kum, al-akmam. Min akmam, as it's mentioned in the Quran. So, but it's here actually, it's al-kum. If it's kum, this is where the clothing part, the sleeves of the clothing. But al-kim with the kasra is al-tal' is the container of the pollen. So this is what al-kum or al-kim. So min akmamihi, right? Kharaja min akmamihi kawardin wa qutn. So all of these things have the same ruling. Once the container or the flower or whatever the first stage before the produce comes, if it appears and the person had sold the trees or the whatever, the palm trees and so on, then it belongs to the seller, unless it's specified.
Is it at the time the flower is visible, or what would come out of the flower?
No, the flower is visible. Right. Right. He says وما قبل ذلك, and what's كورد وقطن وما قبل ذلك والورق مطلقا لمشتري. So anything before that, but of course when the flower comes, he says, it's not like the first appearance of the flower. It's if it's correct to say the flower, it's what comes from the flower once it appears. So when it appears, that means there's the starting of the produce to show. وما قبل ذلك, and what's before that, before the produce is shown. والورق, الورق is the paper, but here of course refers to the leaves. مطلقا, without any condition, the absolute sense, لمشتر, to the buyer. Okay, so let's make it like that clear. It's the produce before it appears, even if it's very small, or what the starting of the produce to appear. We're not talking about being ripe or being looks like it the final product of it. No, it's just once it start coming from whatever it comes from, then all of that belongs to the seller, unless before that it belongs to the mushtari, to the purchaser, unless it's specified. All of that is for what? Is for the produce, belongs to the seller because he sold it when it's already coming out. Clear? Mm-hmm. No, it has to open. Has to open, and then when you look down there, you find something. So yes. Right. Right.
The apple out of the flower, then you get a circle. Is it the circle that
the first stage of the apple? No. Right. It's once the blossom opens for the produce to come. Unless it's specified. So what take all these things confusion away if it's again they would refer to this if there's nothing specified, unless they would specify it when they're selling it or purchasing it. And that's the next example here, this next مسألة ولا يصح بيع ثمر. So the previous one is about selling the trees, right? So the produce of it belongs to the buyer or the seller. Here, selling the produce itself. So a person can sell the produce and not the tree, right? So this is the fourth category. This is the fourth type. Now selling the thamar or the produce. He says ولا يصح بيع ثمر قبل بدو صلاحه. لا يصح is not valid, it's not correct. To sell بيع ثمر. Thamar is the produce. قبل, before بدو صلاحه. Here not بدوه, no, بدو صلاحه. Al-budu is for it to appear. But what appears? Salahihi, that means it's salah is what? Is upright, it's ready. Basically here, that means it's ripe, it's ready to be, a person can take it and benefit from it and eat from it. Right? So if someone is purchasing the produce, it is not permissible unless it's ripe and it's ready to be harvested. So a person, the wholesalers, for example, they would come and they purchase the produce when it's still in the trees, with the condition, and this is by the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, with the condition that it's already there. Whatever is needed is just maybe a few days to give it more, good look, whatever, before they harvest it or immediately. They don't have to harvest it immediately; they can wait. But it's clear on the trees. So, for example, apple trees. The apple is right there. It's not in the first stages of it. No, it can be harvested, or a person can wait for a few days or not. It doesn't matter. So this is selling the crops, not selling the tree. ولا زرع قبل اشتداد حبه, and also no zar', no, to be sold. As zara' again is the thing that has to be harvested altogether. It's it's removed completely. A person can purchase that, but not before قبل اشتداد حبه, not before the grains of it is strong and ready to be harvested. لغير, but there's an exception. So it is not permissible to be sold the fruits or the produce or the زرع, except لغير مالك أصل أو أرضه. Except مالك أصل. مالك, owner. أصل means is the roots or the foundation, right? الأصل. So the owner of the tree, he rented the land or the tree to the farmer. So the produce will be to the farmer. So that owner of the land, أو أرضه, or the land, the owner of the tree or the owner of the land, the one that is getting the produce, he can sell it to the owner before it ripes. Only the owner. He can purchase it before it ripes. The owner of the land or the owner of the tree. And this is in the case, again, someone that is, he has a deal with him, he's renting from him, and all of the produce, he can sell it, he can keep it, and he's given him rent or whatever, right? So the owner, he wants to purchase it for himself. He can purchase it before it's ripe. So this is only the owner. إلا, except, إلا بشرط قطع. إلا here, except, another exception, meaning that exception to the original ruling here, which is بدو الصلاح. Is it permissible to sell produce before it's ripe, before it's it can be before it's ripe? Yes, with a condition besides the malik, besides the owner, إلا بشرط قطع. So other than the malik, other than the owner, can he purchase the produce before it's ripe? Yes, with a condition. إلا بشرط قطع, with a condition that he would cut it now, immediately. إن كان منتفعا أو منتفعا به, depends on how you want to see it. Except إن كان, if he منتفعا, if he is benefiting from it, not just to cut it and throw it in the garbage, but he might benefit from produce that is not ripe. أو منتفعا به, whether he will benefit from it or it can be benefiting. Like what? For example, if it's apples, or one clear example, the palm, the dates. If the date is still green, they can use it for the animals to eat. And they see that it's not going to give good crops this year. So instead of waiting and wasting it, right? So they want to harvest it early. Maybe it can come something else more. So there's no budu salah. It's not ready, it's not ripe. But someone wants to purchase it, he will benefit from it. He'll feed it to his animals. And it becomes, of course, much cheaper than anything else. So it's valid in this case. So he's not purchasing the produce for people to eat, for something else, another benefit. Then it's okay before it's ripe. وليس مشاعا أو مشاعا. That means it's not مشاع. Remember the المشاع? The ownership of the trees is not multiple owners to it, and nobody knows. It's not very specified who owns what. Masha. That means there's 2-3 partners owns the whole land. One owns 1/3 and the other 2/3, but it's not really specified. This part of the land is yours. The 2/3, this part is for someone else. The ownership is على المشاع. على المشاع means what? They both own it with specific percentages, of course, but without specific parts of the land. So if someone is like this, then it is not permissible for someone to sell 1/3, because we don't know what's 1/3 of what. So وليس مشاع. So if it has to be benefiting and it's not مشاع, if it's مشاع, then they both have to agree. Is it clear? So when we read it again, ولا يصح بيع ثمر, it is not صحيح, it's not valid to sell ثمر, produce, قبل بدو صلاحه. This is, مضاف and مضاف إليه, بدو صلاحه, before it, the salah is clear, that salah is apparent, is showing, that it's right. And it will be mentioned later, inshallah, what is the salah. ولا زرع قبل اشتداد حبه. And no زرع, and the زرع here is with a kasra because ثمر. ولا يصح بيع ثمر ولا زرع. And no زرع قبل اشتداد, الشدة is the intense, حبه, the حب, the grain. لغير مالك أصل, without, if he's not مالك أصل, he's not the owner of the tree itself, رحمك الله, أو أرضه, or the land of it. إلا بشرط قطع, unless it's with the condition for it to be cut off, or to be harvested, إن كان منتفعا به, if he's benefiting from it, meaning the purchaser. وليس مشاعا, and it's not مشاع, that means the ownership is for everyone at the same time. He says, and the same ruling applies, وكذا بقل ورطبة ولا قثاء ونحوه إلا لقطة لقطة أو مع أصله. And the same thing with al-baql. Al-baql is basically anything that grows, and when you look at the land, it looks green. This is al-baql. بقلها وقثائها وفومها وعدسها وبصلها. The grains. You know, usually the grains grow in things that looks green. So this is al-baql. And al-ratba is the al-ratb is when something is not dry. And that also refers to the plants that would have the same, you know, it's not something that is green, that is dried, but it's something that is harvested once. ولا قثاء ونحوه, not قثاء. Al-qitha is like the cucumber, because it has to be picked, and the like of what is being picked. Right? So if the things are not picked, harvested by being cut, the same ruling applies here, that has to be ripe and everything, unless a person would take it from other reason. And the qitha and the like of it, things that are being picked, except laqta, laqta. Unless it's, laqta means what? One time picking after one time picking. This is the benefit of repeating it. Except laqta, laqta, every time, every laqta. أو مع أصلي, or with its asl, with its roots, with its foundation. And then he says, نعم, وإن ترك ما شرط قطعه بطل البيع بزيادة غير يسيرة. So, but here the baql or ratba, the ratba, I'm just trying to get examples of it, the ones that are hidden under the ground. So it's wet, like sweet potatoes and things like this, right? Because they don't know if it's ripe or not. I mean, you don't see it. So it's something that is under the ground. You know, unless it's, he would have to harvest it immediately. Laqta, laqta. Or with its roots. He would take it all. So this is because there's no budu salah here. You can't see it if it's ready or not. So unless it's the time to harvest it completely. That means what? Again, if something in the trees and it's ripe, you can purchase it when it's in the trees, and you wait. But if it's something like this, the sweet potatoes or whatever, right? So if a person purchase it when it's there, yes, but with the condition of harvesting immediately. Because there's gharar. The matter might be not clear, whether it's ripe or not, you don't see. So they wait till the time for them to harvest it. So that means they have to harvest it or they have to cut it immediately. Whether the produce or aslihi or from its roots, because it's not seen. You can't see it. Okay? So, وَإِن تُرِكَ مَا شُرِطَ قَطْعُهُ بَطَلَ الْبَيْعُ. Are we going too far? It's okay? Is it clear? وَإِن تُرِكَ مَا شُرِطَ قَطْعُهُ بَطَلَ الْبَيْعُ بِزِيَادَةٍ غَيْرِ يَسِيرٍ. Now this is the mas'ala. وَإِن تُرِك, if turik means left, in the passive tense. What is left? مَا شُرِطَ قَطْعُهُ, what has been made as a condition to cut it, like the previous ones. Someone, he would purchase the dates when it's not ripe because he wants to feed it to the animals. So what's the condition for it? has to be cut immediately. He cannot wait. So if he left it, they made the deal and he purchased it and he disappeared and he came after some time. وإن ترك, this is what, if he left ما شرط قطع, what was the condition of the transaction is for him to cut it. بطل البيع. The بيع is not valid. بزيادة غير يسيرة. بطل البيع بزيادة if there is increase that is not a small increase. If it's a small increase, it's okay. So he purchased it when it was small or the numbers of it is not much. Comes after a few days, instead of it was 10 pounds, it was 12 pounds. It's okay. But if it's a big increase, that means the transaction is void. Right? Because it was supposed to that he has to cut it immediately. So what constitutes immediately has to be immediately. So if it's a day or two, and the urf, also the norms of the people applies here. But there's an exception. إلا الخشب, except the wood. Someone cutting wood, cutting the trees for wood. فلا. If he's late, it's okay. Because when it grows, it's good for the deal is better. But then ويشتركان فيه. They will be partners in it. So if he purchased trees for wood or to cut parts of the trees for wood, to sell it as wood, and he stayed for a few days or whatever for a long time, till he came back and he wants to cut it. But now the tree grew. So the deal is still valid, yes. But then they increase their partners in it. Because he was supposed to take it when it was small, now it's increased. ويشتركان فيه. But then if it's a produce, it can never be fixed. You cannot really see who belonged to what. And that's why they mentioned specifically al-khashab, because al-khashab is, it's something that is no deception is there. And the same thing applies if something that is no deception. This is if it's left, that was supposed to be cut off immediately, but they didn't. So then, does he have the khiyar or not? This is something else. Does he have the choice? The seller, if it's khashab or not, this is a different situation, unless they specify. Is it clear? So let's take one statement. وحصاد ولقاط وجداد على مشتري. الحصاد is harvesting. وآتوا حقه يوم حصاده. As the ayah says, gives the zakah on the day of harvesting. So وحصاد, the hasad, the harvesting, the price or the what you call it? The whatever is needed to spend to harvest, workers, machines, whatever. So the hasad and what it would require is money, machines, and things like this. And laqat, if it's to be picked, also whether it's men picking the produce or by machines. Wajadad, they're all the same thing, but different words for different plants. Jadad is for the palm trees, for example. You need someone to climb. You give him money for him to climb the palm trees and to pick the produce and things like this. So all of that, who would pay for all of this? The buyer or the seller? He says, ala mushtari. The mushtari is the one that pays for it. So it doesn't have to be included in the contract unless they specify. So the person purchased the land, purchased the trees, whatever there is, right? And he purchased it on the trees. That's why it's cheaper than if it's after it's been harvested. So because he has to pay for for whatever means to harvest the land. So the mushtari is the one that would purchase, would pay for this. Clear? And this is a mas'ala that is in many things that requires some some logistics to it. Like for example, the zakah. The zakah is supposed to reach the poor. But if the zakah requires for some transportation, someone has to take the money from one place to the other, and that requires money. Who pays for the transaction, for example, is the owner of the zakah. So if your zakah is 1,000 and it costs $50 to reach the poor, who's supposed to pay for the 50? The one that is given the zakah, because it has to reach the poor 1,000. The same thing with zakatul fitr and things like this. Zakatul fitr, you have to have a truck to put the grains in it, and it has to go to the poor. Who's going to pay for the truck? You have to add extra for the people, those who gave the zakah, because they have to maintain this. They have to spend on this. Okay, so this is على مشتري. طيب, one more. Okay. وعلى بائع سقي ولو تضرر أصله. وعلى بائع. So the previous one is upon the mushtari, upon the purchaser. البائع, the one that is selling, سقي. Now we're talking still about purchasing the produce before it's harvested. So the mushtari, the purchaser, he purchased it already, but it's still in the land of the seller. So who's going to irrigate the land? البائع, the seller, not the mushtari, not the purchaser. He cannot say, well, it does not belong to me anymore, I sold it. No, but he purchased it when it's still on the trees. Who's the one that is responsible for and paying for the irrigation is the seller. على بائع سقي ولو تضرر أصل. And if even if the asl or the tree become harmed or so, that means if the ba'i', the seller, he has to take care of it, because to make sure that the produce comes out and stays to be good for the mushtari. We'll stop here, inshallah. Even though there's not much left in the chapter, but we'll stop here, inshallah. First of all, you have any questions? Anything that is not clear? Yes. For the buyer to immediately get it. Yes. When he's purchasing, he cannot. Again, if the produce is hidden like potatoes, and he wants to purchase it while it's still in the land, he has to immediately cut it or collect it. نعم. بطل البيع, that means the bay'a is not valid anymore. There's difference between فساد البيع وبطل البيع. The fasad is that it's like not corrupted, but that means it's there might be a condition that is invalid, but the buying itself is valid. But here بطل البيع, the bay'a does not, as if it never happened. It's not there anymore. From al-batil, from falsehood. Anything else? What is it? منتفعا, إن كان منتفعا به, if he is benefiting from it. From النفع, benefit. So if it's benefiting for him, then it's okay. So here, as long as we understand the masail in English, that's important, right? And then the other step is to make sure that also we get the words correct, inshallah. So do you want to read it together, inshallah? طيب, we'll go back to all the way to the beginning of the fasl. Just read it together, inshallah. You guys ready? وَإِذَا بَاعَ دَارًا شَمِلَ الْبَيْعُ. And when we're reading, if there's a word that is not clear, tell me at the end, inshallah. شَمِلَ الْبَيْعُ أَرْضَهَا وَبِنَاءَهَا وَسَقْفَهَا وَبَابًا مَنْصُوبًا وَسُلَّمًا ورفا مسمورين وخابية مدفونة لا قفلا ومفتاحا ودلوا وبكرة ونحوها أو أرضا شمل غرسها وبناءها لا زرعا وبذره إلا بشرط ويصح مع جهل ذلك وما يجز أو يلقط مرارا فأصوله لمشتر وجزة ولقطة ظاهرتان لبائع ما لم يشرطه مشتر ومن باع نخلا تشقق طلعه فالثمر له مبقى إلى جداد ما لم يشرطه مشتر وكذا حكم شجر فيه ثمر باد أو ظهر من نوره كمشمش خرج خرج من أكمامه كورد وقطن وما قبل ذلك والورق مطلقا لمشتر ولا يصح بيع ثمر قبل بدو صلاحه ولا زرع قبل اشتداد حبه لغير مالك أصل أو أرضه إلا بشرط قطع إن كان منتفعا به وليس مشاعا وكذا بقل ورطبة ولا قثاء ونحوه إلا لقطة أو مع أصله وإن ترك ما شرط قطعه بطل البيع بزيادة غير يسيرة إلا الخشب فلا ويشتركان فيها وحصاد ولقاط وجداد على مشتر وعلى بائع سقي ولو تضرر أصل. Any questions? بدوي becomes clear. وبدا لهم من الله ما لم يكونوا يحتسبون. وبدا لهم become apparent and clear to them from Allah what they've never expected to happen, meaning in the day of judgment. So البدو when it comes out and it's clear. And the last one ولو تضرر أصل, is it clear? وعلى بائع سقي ولو تضرر أصل. The seller, the producer is there, and the one that irrigate the land is the seller. Even if he harms his trees, meaning that he has to make sure that he hands over the produce sound and good, even if he would have to harm his trees. يعني in the case, he doesn't have to harm, I mean, even would that be harmful to him? Because he has to, because he sold it, he sold the fruit, so yeah, the producer has to give it to him. He has to irrigate the land. So the today's code, inshallah, لقطة LAQTA LAQTA لقطة. طيب, any questions? Oh, the hadith. ولو تضرر أصل. The question again, ولو تضرر أصل, if the asl is harmed, the asl meaning the plant itself, the tree itself. if it's harmed as a result of the ba'i', the seller irrigating the land. Because he has to make sure that he gives the produce a thamar. It has to reach the buyer harvested good because he purchased it ripe. So that means he has to irrigate the land. If irrigating the land might harm the trees next later or whatever, it doesn't matter. He has to make sure that he gives the thamar good to the buyer. The hadith. This hadith is, can we make the adhan and then we make the hadith after the adhan? What's the number? Hadith 140. Hadith number 140, but we can continue after the adhan. Inshallah, we'll read the hadith together. Hadith number 140. عن أبي مالك الأشعري رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم الطهور شطر الإيمان والحمد لله تملأ الميزان وسبحان الله والحمد لله تملأان أو تملأ ما بين السماوات والأرض والصلاة نور والصدقة برهان والصبر ضياء والقرآن حجة لك أو عليك كل الناس يغدو فبائع نفسه فبائع نفسه فبائع نفسه فمعتقها أو موبقها فمعتقها أو موبقها رواه مسلم. It's one of the great hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that every sentence of it requires actions and to reflect upon the effect of it and the meaning of it. The first one is at-tuhur shatrul iman. At-tuhur is the act of purifying oneself. So purification, whether it's physical purification for wudu and ghusl and so on, or away from impurities, or non-physical impurities to purify our hearts and so on. Shatrul iman. Half, shatr is half. Half of al-iman. Which shows the importance of al-tuhur, which is the purification. Walhamdulillahi tamla'ul mizan. Alhamdulillah. Just to say alhamdulillah fills tamla'. Al-mizan, the balance of the deeds. Wa subhanallahi walhamdulillahi, saying subhanallah walhamdulillah, tamla'an, fills everything. Or tamla'u ma bayna as-samawati wal ard, or fills what's between the heavens and the earth. From the rewards, fills in the rewards. Shows the importance of the dhikr of Allah with these words, alhamdulillah and subhanallah walhamdulillah. Was-salatu nur, as-salah is light. What light means, and the importance of the salah. Was-sadaqatu burhan. Sadaqah is charity. Burhan is an evidence. Evidence of one's iman. When a person gives sadaqah, he's not waiting for a return in this world. He's seeking rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hereafter. So that shows that he has al-iman, faith in the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Was-sadaqatu burhan. Was-sabru diya. Patience is light. But diya is the light that comes with heat, comes with struggle, different than nur. Nur is the light that comes with ease. Wal-Qur'anu hujjatun laka aw alayk. Al-Qur'an either hujjah. Hujjah is the evidence when it's established. There's no doubt about it. Becomes very clear. Either lak, either for you or against you. Either for you, that means you follow it, or against you if you don't follow it. Then the last statement of the hadith, kullu nasi yaghdu. All the people yaghdu. Al-ghudu is when a person leaves in the morning to go for work, to go out. Kullu nasi yaghdu. All the people, they go out in the morning. فَبَائِعٌ نَفْسَهُ, they are classified into two categories. They all بائع النفس. They all sell themselves. بائع. Talked about al-bay' just now. So فبائع نفسه, he sells himself. Everybody, every single human being, they sell themselves, right? فمعتقها أو موبقها, either he معتقها, either he free himself, or he the opposite, أو موبقها, he ruins himself. And mubiqat is the destructive sins, he destroy himself. And that's how when people go to work, they're selling themselves. They're selling their effort to others to get money, whether they're hired for a salary or they're selling things. So, and the same thing, a person would sell himself to ruin himself when he commits sins as a result of seeking provisions, or he free himself when he's obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's one of the comprehensive hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that brings all of these great acts of worship together in one hadith. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us benefit from what we heard. And we'll continue inshallah ta'ala next time. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Muhammad wa sallam.